along with the way you wrote these questions, but I will be able to ad lib around them.
All right, now
I'll
we're
do
live.
I'll do the
Now
best
we're
I can.
streaming.
Okay, no, just speak your mind, kiddo.
What did you think of?
I'm not sure that you really want me to do that, Dan, but all right.
It's okay.
What did you think of? What was your experience with WovoCon? You
I thought it was fantastic. I really got a lot out of it myself, for sure.
had you done it before?
I'd never
WovoCon?
done it before.
Okay.
No, it was my first time. And my only experience with conferences was during the pandemic. I presented virtually at VO Atlanta,
Mhm.
but
Right.
that was a really, really different animal
Oh, yeah.
than actually going.
Yeah.
You know, but
Mhm.
no, it was a real pleasure because there were certain people I had known
Mhm.
before, who I'd met at other events, things like that. And then it was just so nice to have a number of people who I'd maybe just casually seen once, who I taught in a workshop, for example, or people that happened to graciously come up to me and say, "I know who you are," and I was like, "That's lovely, thank you. I don't know who you are," and then they're like, "No, I read your stuff a lot online, and I'm like, "Oh,
Well,
great,
get used to it
okay,
because you're about to get the
great."
VOBS bump.
Yeah.
Well,
So
gosh darn,
you're going to get a lot more people on the street
I'm
recognizing.
just so excited. I have
Yeah.
a sliver of fame, where occasionally people do come up to me and I'm just like, are you a process server? What is it? Hi, it's great to meet you. And you are, because I'm at a loss here. I don't know you know who I am, but okay.
I mean, I knew who
Okay.
you were before you showed up at WovoCon, and
Okay. But
so
how?
how? Because I would see your name in voiceover extra and stuff like that, and
Okay.
you know,
Okay, that's fair.
of course,
John was very generous. John Florin is very generous in
Yeah.
publishing and republishing things I'd written for quite some time.
yeah. He
Quite some
also
time.
he also sponsors the show. Of course, he called me yesterday as I was driving back from my mom's, and we're like driving past Universal Studios and through all that Hollywood stuff, and he's like,
Hmm.
"I think you had a typo on your promo with Hugh Klitzke tomorrow," and I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" I had I had transposed the I and the L in your name,
Oh,
so I immediately when I got home, I fixed that.
not an uncommon mistake,
It was just a typo.
You know,
My fleet little fingers don't work as well as they used to.
people have replaced the vowel in my name with other vowels, in my first name. You know, that was emblazoned on an elementary school poetry magazine, as I recall, where
How did they
suddenly I
spell
was
it?
Hi, Klitzke.
I
And I
know.
was just sort of like, and you can imagine, elementary school kids, in the 70s were just all about that, for a while, very exciting to them. Ooh, hi. He's high.
It's like a Yiddish name. High Silverman.
I wouldn't know. I
Oh,
wouldn't
okay.
know. I'm an Episcopalian white boy from New Jersey. I got nothing.
What? And there's no Jews around you there? I mean,
Imagine that. Imagine that. No, that's why I moved to New York. The food got better. The people got more interesting.
oh, of course.
You're from
All
Jersey
kinds of
though, which
things.
Jersey it depends
Which exits?
Which
you know.
exit? Yeah.
Yeah. Believe it or not, that's not a joke. That's a real thing. 125 off the Parkway, 8A off the Turnpike, but you got to go in a little.
Mhm.
Is that a helpful answer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We know what you're
I don't
talking
believe
about.
because my aunt and uncle were in Villas near Cape May. It was a very
Okay.
different part of New Jersey.
Very different from Central. Absolutely. I went to school in Southern New Jersey. It's a completely different world in
Mhm.
Northern New Jersey. Basically, North Jersey is oriented towards New York City, and South Jersey is oriented towards Philly.
Right.
So it's really, really different. And
Or
in
just
Central
oriented
Jersey,
towards anything but either of those.
right. And
Which is
in Central Jersey, it's sort of somewhere in between, but
Yeah,
generally more oriented towards New York.
South Jersey is more akin to like rural Maryland
Yeah.
or rural
Yeah.
Delaware.
It can have a very, very, very strong rural element to it, for
Mhm.
sure.
yeah, different world down there.
Yeah.
Loved visiting there though. Jersey.
Okay.
East
so-
Philadelphia. That's another name of a neighborhood of Jersey. My friends, I know people that live just over the bridge, so they like to say they're from East Philly.
East Philly. Okay.
Okay,
Since there is no East Philly,
Mm-hmm.
there's a river. So
Exactly.
that's right.
Exactly.
So, okay, so we're going to talk about. Yeah, hey, Mike Durner, I know you're watching. Thank you.
yes, thank you.
This is a very nice little mic flag that he got me because,
Oh,
Oh, cool. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
that's.
I've
I
had.
think. I think that's great.
It is.
yeah, it's really neat.
It's more traditional, and it goes so well with all the old radios that I've got
Yeah.
in there. So,
I just
Anyhow.
realized I don't need to have an advertisement for Rode microphones in frame, so I will move that. There we go.
okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
They get enough
I can
free
put the
promotion.
Rode arm here, but
Yeah, they get enough free friggin' promotion as it is.
I know.
I actually know of a fellow by the name of HYRUM AJB voice actor. Okay. All right. Good.
All right.
Good.
Let's see here. So yeah, I've got my thoughts about demos. So
Sure.
we can probably play on that a little bit too.
If you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how important are they? They're clearly important when presenting oneself.
Sure. Absolutely. Very, very important when
but
presenting
what,
itself.
right. But what's going to book the job is how you do on an audition, and
Right.
you've got to be able to faithfully reproduce that when you get hired for a gig, and and they'll say, "Hey, can you do it like you did on cut number 4 on your demo?" And it's like, all right, let me go back and listen and see what the hell I did there.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So,
Sure. And they want you to be able to do that. People come to me to produce their demos very rarely for their first one. It's
Right.
usually their second one, or maybe even
Yeah.
their third one. Sometimes it's a product of having studied with me,
mhm.
where there's been an evolution, and then they want to be able to showcase that. Or they're in a very different place now. Maybe perhaps they've aged, perhaps they've developed a new skill, and then they just want somebody to be able to capture that and reflect it. But I'm always it's fascinating because sometimes it's like looking at an early headshot of yourself, where it's like maybe you looked good but the photo was bad, or maybe you didn't look good and the photo is great. But everybody has to update their materials and go through process once they've been exposed to more ideas, once they grow
Right.
in measurable, demonstrative ways. And people like to talk to me about that, probably because I take the time to really listen, to really understand what they want that demo to do.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the way it should be. And that's not what we're getting from a lot of places these days. There's so many demo mills out there, and
Yeah.
they'll a demo in a day, and it's like, it takes a couple of weeks to get it right, and in several different sessions. And,
Yeah, I mean, I always ask about the process that they went through before, and then I was naive and felt like everybody should do it the way I do it, but no, they don't. And I'm just like, so how did you do it? What was it like? And you hear the stories, and some of them are just obviously people that have just been taken advantage of sometimes.
Right.
But sometimes there's this air of dissatisfaction where they're just like, I wish they had done this. I wish they had,
Right.
done Y. Like sometimes I've heard stories about people replicating music from other people's demos. I've heard stories of people replicating scripts from other people's demos. And just things like that, where I'm just like, and I'm not going to tell tales out of school, but when I've heard that, I've just always been like, But then producer in any capacity is a slippery term, isn't it? Where a producer has a skill set and they work with people based on their strengths, and then they subcontract the rest.
Right.
But the question is, what is your point person really doing with you?
Right.
I
right,
student.
We're down to a minute here, so we're going to start up in less than a minute.
Yes, sir.
All right.
None of that wisdom is going to be in the show.
Well, it's now permanently imbibed on Facebook until I delete it.
That's all right. Until you delete it.
Yeah, and feel free to repeat that. So
I'll do the best I can. God knows I don't know that I can.
Well,
I'll mention.
so far you've been able
I'll
to
bring
write
up
Yeah,
what are
that's
the
true.
biggest complaints voice actors get once they realize they recorded a crap demo 2 years later.
Right.
Because they didn't know any better. That's why they come to you to do the second demo.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I don't.
Okay, here we go.
We are
All
ready
right.
from Sue.
Okay.
Here we go.
And
5, 4, 3.
hey, it's time for VoiceOver Body Shop. How's everybody doing out there? We have a great guest tonight. As voice actors, we all have to have demos. And people complain about their demos or they love their demos. And there's so many guys producing and gals, so many people producing demos. We figured, why don't we have somebody who knows a lot about making demos on the show? And so our guest tonight is Hugh Klitzke. Say hello, Hugh.
Hello, Hugh.
Very good. It's 2 weeks in a row. Deb Irwin did that last time.
On a roll.
Perhaps I need to rephrase
maybe
the
that's-
question.
Could be because she and I know each other, so
That's-
it's like maybe that's why.
Maybe that's why. So, are we all ready out there? If you got a question, throw it in the chat room because Jeff Holman, who is out of the frame right now, but he's here and he will be taking your questions and relaying those to us. Are we ready, Mr. Whittam?
Ready to go.
All right, VoiceOver Body Shop right now. VoiceOver Body Shop is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com, become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George. Well, hello there. I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver,
Body Shop.
or VOBS. So, got a gift this week. Mike Derner sent us this wonderful mic flag because
Really nice.
everybody was tired of the one I
print that or something?
No, it's on a 3D printer. Somebody is doing these with 3D printers.
Awesome.
And, the people like me who collect old microphones, it's like, well, you got to get the flags. So,
Very cool.
And it looks a lot better than the paper one that was printed out like 4 or 5 years ago and kept trying to find different ways to stick it on the mic. And
Thanks, Mike. It's cool.
yeah, but as soon as we're done, I can just take it off and
Oh, that's great.
yeah, I know. As long as it doesn't interfere with the diaphragm at all. Do I
Doesn't
sound
look
okay
like it
with
does.
this?
It's up high enough. Yeah.
If anything, it makes me sound better and look more professional. Anyway, tonight we have a great guest. We're going to talk about demos, and demos are, of course, very, very important. So why don't we introduce our guest, and that way we can get into a discussion of this. Hugh Klitzke is a voiceover coach, director, and producer in New York City. He teaches the conversational read, self-direction, the commercial read, and Dick directs auditions, as he says, amongst other things. Hugh has directed booking auditions for commercials, animation, ADR, politicals, podcasts, narration, games, audiobooks, promos, affiliates, trailers, e-learning, and industrials, which is just about everything. Let's welcome to VoiceOver Body Shop, Hugh Klitzke. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
How you doing tonight?
Good, thanks.
All right, that was a long introduction, but then again, you have a lot of stuff that you do in directing it. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this nutso business.
It was purely by accident. Back in the day, I was at something of an odd low point in my life. I was selling cell phones at Radio Shack and was casting about. I did my graduate and undergraduate work in music composition, and I had worked with some filmmakers who in grad school who knew that I was looking for something to do. All my freelance work, all my music work had dried up, and I had to turn to, as a friend of mine put it, an alternative lifestyle, to support myself at the time. And I wound up scoring an independent film for a fellow who had absolutely no budget. And I said to him, okay, I get it. You have no money. All your friends got to do it. And the interesting thing, though, the acting was really good, but the film was a art film, and it was kind of odd. And that's an important part of the story. And I said to the guy, I don't know if you can help me with this, but it don't work for free. But if people can't afford to pay me, they barter with me, they do me favors. And what I want more in the universe than anything right now is a better job than my day job, because my day job sucks. And he looked at me and he said, okay, what about my old day job? I said, I don't know what you did. He was the voiceover casting director at the agency. And it turned out that the talent in his film were all signed actors who came in and did his film for him as a favor. And I interviewed on a Friday at 9 in the morning. I got a call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I got hired. And to my surprise, I said, wow, that's great. Thanks. That sounds fantastic. Now, what am I going to do?
And you,
Because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about the work. I didn't know about anything that was going on, but I was trained on site. You know, they had another agent who had trained all of the people that did the job after him. And most of those folks lasted for about a year, maybe a year and a half in the position. And I stayed for almost 15 years.
wow. Well, you're gonna learn a thing or two over that period of time. So, and you were there for 15 years, and
Almost,
now,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, it was less than that, but it sounds good if you round that number up, right?
Just-
You know,
just say
nearly
13 and a half,
nearly
and,
15 years, you know, it just sounds good.
That sounds like my broadcasting career. Yeah, I was in it for 15 years. They paid me for 12 of them, but you know. So now you're producing demos, but
I'm
you're
a
not
coach.
really known for that.
Yeah, I'm a coach primarily, yeah, but I knew that when we had talked about my being on here, we just discussed the idea of, you know, maybe I could talk about demos. And I said, sure, I could talk about demos because I do produce them. I don't feel like I produce a whole lot of them, but people come to me with very, very specific ideas and very, very specific questions. I rarely produce anyone's first demo. I usually produce their second, maybe even their third. Often students of mine who have coached with me, they'll say, do you? And to which I say yes. And then that becomes part of our, that after working with me for a while and they move, change, develop their skill set in a different way, they then trust me to show that off to the very best of my ability because I understand them.
Yeah, I mean, you can so much more effectively coach somebody or direct somebody and produce a very convincing demo when you're coaching them and you know all their strengths and weaknesses. And having gone through, I think many people probably did go through that first demo, and it was done on a probably on a shoestring budget, maybe very, very quickly, or maybe they spent a lot of money on it, but it was still done very quickly, or the script was generic, or maybe the script was 10 years old, which somebody recently told me on the side. A very prominent demo producer did their first demo. He found out years later that he shouldn't have a 10-year-old commercial script on his demo.
Right.
But yeah, it's the things that people learn. And so when they get to do that second time with you, they're going to get a much, much better product, and they're going to appreciate the skills you bring to the table.
The thing that troubles me most sometimes is not just the direction, but more the casting. I find that the fit of the right content to the individual is so important. But at the same time, I also know that I'm speaking from my own experience because casting was essential in the agency world. And so I was constantly around the thinking and the questions and the ideas of what's the difference between this person being able to perform something versus somebody who's the right fit for something that fits the request. And then to try to synthesize that with a demo is very, very important. And I don't think that can really be underestimated because I hear demos and again, I'm speaking from my experience, what I value when I listen. And I'm sitting there going, that content doesn't match. They would never be cast for this. why is that on their demo? You know, it just doesn't fit. And then I'm not paying even really paying attention to the read, to the production, to anything else. And that's a very, very fine line, because people want to be aspirational with their demo. They want to be able to say, this is what I'm capable of doing. This is what I want. I want to be able to show that off. But if it's not a good fit for you in the first place, then already you're losing.
Yeah. Well, what are the good elements of a demo? Yeah, I mean, there's the basic stuff. Your name, and you don't even slate them anymore. It's just, you know, what is it that you should have in a demo?
I think they should be slated, but I think they should be slated by somebody who's not you. I think they should be slated by somebody who's of the opposite gender as you, as well, because I think there's a psychological benefit to having somebody set you up. I mean, statistically, it's proven that people that have other people speak on their behalf, they earn more money. And I think that when somebody of the opposite gender slates your name, they're like, oh, this person has somebody else that believes in them.
Right. This person's a pro, yeah.
Then they can, what do you call it? They'll listen in a different way. You know, it's very subtle. What goes into a good demo? I think a demo needs to be a little entertaining, believe it or not. I think you actually have to like listening to it. And that's kind of difficult to capture. I think that you have to hold people's attention in the right way from the very, very beginning, and then you have to conclude very, very well at the end. Perhaps even having the beginning of a spot up front and the end of a spot at the end. I think demos have to have variety. I think that demos have to show certain kinds of skills. They have to show that you can interpret copy well. They have to show that you can tell story. They have to be a strong representation of the artist that you are right now. And then in turn, your skill set has to be able to back that up. So as we were talking before on the beginning, you know, Dan was saying how, yeah, I want you to do it like you did on the fourth cut of your demo. Well, then the talent is there trying to remember what the fourth cut was, you know, and that can be very, very, now you're showing your age, but but I'm not of that age too. You know, I am old enough to have cut tape, but not a lot of it. Not a lot, but yeah, I am old enough to have cut tape. It has to have variety. It has to show knowledge of marketplace. It has to show where your voice is likely to be sold. That if you have an interest or a strength, that you have knowledge base. For example, I'm producing a demo now. This person has a background in broadcast journalism, focus on finance. And when she auditions for things, she gets lots of likes in whichever of the pay-for-play sites she's on, specifically around finance. So I'm immediately like, yep, we got to have that for sure. There has to be a finance spot on your demo. But she's never really thought about pharma. So I think that she needs to have a disclaimer, for example, a black box warning, for example, on her demo, because that's also important. And those two are kind of like cousins in a way, just in certain parts of the read, just a little bit. I can hear that black box fair balance warnings, black box warnings, fair balance warnings have to put over information clearly and responsibly. And I can hear that in the business reads in certain spots, maybe for like Sunday morning business shows, if they're in there for those specific kind of investment portfolios, to be able to command and hold attention, but perhaps still temper that with a bit of warmth or a bit of approachability. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean when they have cousins. There are elements of the reads that have certain similarities.
What is the black? I think I know what the black box part is.
Sure. It's sometimes in the pharma universe, it's sometimes called the black box warning, where you have to have in a pharmaceutical ad, you have the good stuff up front, Then you have the warning and disclaimer in the middle,
side effects and stuff,
side
like
effects
that.
and all that,
Yeah.
and then they reprise the good stuff at the end.
Right, gotcha.
But under FDA guidelines, you're supposed to present them identically all the way across. That's not policed very heavily unless somebody complains.
Deb said in the old days, you could just squeeze it in at the very end. It could be very, very high speed, and that's no longer the case. And
No longer the case.
Yeah.
No longer the case at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they'll frequently cast two different people. They'll frequently cast a voice up front that'll do you have this problem with this, emotional, not too emotional. Then they have the disclaimer in the middle, the warning, and frequently they're of two different genders. And then at the end, that other voice comes back. And I'm certain there are reasons, I'm not exactly sure why, but it's such a pattern that there must be a reason that works for the pharmaceutical company's benefit, for sure.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, our guest is Hugh Klitzke, and we're talking about the elements of your demos, which you all have to have out there. If you've got a question for Hugh about demos and that sort of thing, throw it in the chat room. Jeff Holdman's back there writing everything down and relaying it to us, and we really appreciate his taking the time to do that for us. All right, so when you produce demos, what is the process like for you? How do you do it?
There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of conversation. There's a whole lot of really understanding. I want to hear the demo that they had before. I want to understand what their experience was like with that. I want to understand what they want to accomplish with a new demo. I want to know why they wanted a new demo now. Is it just simply that the stuff is dated? Is it just simply that the stuff is they've learned how to read conversationally, better for 2023 as opposed to what was going on in 2019? And once I divine those reasons, just in talking it out, then I'll sit there and really pay attention. I'll have them read for me to really understand what they gravitate towards, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And I'm also willing to, at moments, to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I'm listening very objectively and very abstractly to their voices, trying to say, okay, what about, for example, I produced a few elements for somebody's demo, not a full demo, but just a few pieces because he wanted to show himself as being more than just a big voiced guy. And I said, okay, what would you like to be able to show that your current material doesn't? And he had lots of cars and he had lots of really big, huge, aggressive, masculine things. He said, I would love to have a whiskey spot. And I'm like, yep, you absolutely could have a whiskey spot, 100%, because that was important to him. He really wanted that. But then because of his age, I suggested maybe you want healthcare, because it would be perhaps you being warm and supportive toward a family member, an older family member, perhaps. But the context of the read, the content in the read would have to express those ideas of support and caring and trust for my family and yours as a subtext in the ideas. And then I said to him, what about this? And I put a polo black spot in front of him. And he never thought about that before. He never had thought about that. And now that leads his player, where it's just a very simple, straightforward, masculine read. And my post guy, emailed me back and he said his demo was an absolute pleasure to mix. And I'm like, then we did it right, because suddenly he was doing Sexy Grandpa for the first time in his life, just reading Polo Black. But it's really, again, I think casting is super important. From there, you can have read, and from there, you can then have post, and to think about the demo as an object all the way through, with variety, with just that hint of entertainment value in those 90 seconds or those 75 seconds, that it's something that you want to listen to, because that's just going to help. This is going to help your cause.
Yeah.
But also just to make sure that everything is strongly and specifically in their wheelhouse. Also being willing to take them just outside of it in order to make them feel great about presenting themselves.
Do you produce entire spots like you were producing a whole commercial,
I'll
and
think
then
of,
lift the gold out of each spot? How do you
I
do
do.
that?
I
Yeah.
do. I do that. But I've certainly seen producers that don't. And a student of mine once said, "Will you coach me on material for a demo that you're not going to produce?" Which I said, "Absolutely, of course I will." And I was very surprised when she came to me with pieces of commercials. And I didn't question it, but I said, "Okay." And we worked the material together and everything. And I heard the end result, and it was great. It was probably one of the best demos I've heard in quite some time, where I felt it captured her. It was energetic. It was empathetic, all these things. And I was like, that guy is definitely thinking about the demo object in a different way than me. He had all that mapped out in his imagination before giving it to the talent. Me, I sit there and I'm sitting there taking pieces of things and reorganizing and understanding routining of this piece to that piece to the next piece to the other piece, because that's the way that makes sense to me. That's a little bit of my music background. That's a little bit of my theater background, where I'm sitting there understanding the routining of things, the organizing of things, fast to slow to intimate to authoritative to communicative. But I have to feel all that out. This producer, he'd had all that mapped out in his imagination. And I'm just like, yeah, good for you, man. You nailed it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's completely different ways of thinking. And I think it's important for talent to understand the way a producer works before you pay them anything. Because then you can understand, does this make sense for the way that I would feel most comfortable? Do I think that that process could bring the best out of me?
Yeah. It's a lot like home voiceover studios, actually, because
Is it?
every voice is different, every room is different. And George and I are always like, everything has to be custom designed for that specific person, for their lifestyle, how they live in their house, that sort of thing. And
For
clearly,
physical size.
yeah, well, there's that too. And what you're doing is good educational stuff. You're getting people to show what individually they're like, and you're working with their individuality to make the demo. Because how many demos do we hear where it's, okay, of course, the same read all the way through? I'm like, there's no contrast, that sort of thing. Or there's, it sounds like they're putting on something that they're really not.
Right.
And to me, it's always important to be intellectually honest with your demos. I am capable of doing this. And will you be able to reproduce this if you get hired for a gig?
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Once again, if you've got a question for Hugh about doing your demo or getting demos done, or any questions about demos, throw it in the chat room right now. We'll get to it in our next segment. So, how do you choose the scripts? I mean, when you're interviewing people, you're asking them all these questions.
That's it. I mean, that's it. Really, more than anything else, it's a fine balance between the things that they're interested in, things where they've succeeded, perhaps. Are you booking this? Do you have that on your current demo? No? Okay, let's do that. Let's find a good example of that, whatever it is. Is it mom? Or are you booking, teen? Or are you booking young mom versus older mom?
Right.
Because the decisions that in the casting, again, think about it, right? A young mom is is preoccupied with different things and making different decisions than a slightly older mom. For example, an older mom might be on their second car, for example, while a young mom may be thinking about, okay, I've got to get rid of the car that hubby and I had, and we're trading it in for our first family
Van.
van or whatever, you know, and then how do we feel about that, you know, and how can we talk about that, and how can the emotional subtext resonate around that content? How can that actor relate to those ideas in genuine, specific, and as Dan has said correctly, repeatable ways? I mean,
Right.
how many talent have explicitly said, I saw the script, I understood it right away, and I got the job? That's because they're speaking from the content of their own experience and then being able to project that into the content of a script.
Right.
Sometimes, yeah, exactly. It's acting, but it's acting in a void. There are so, now we're sort of to wander off into voiceover training and conversation more, but
Right.
that's
Which
okay,
I do want to
right?
get into. Yeah.
Is that okay? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a bit more around does an actor make a voice actor make decisions when there's a lot of information that a on-screen actor or on-stage actor would have,
Right.
and they have to fill in the blanks with their imagination.
Right. So yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the conversational read.
Sure.
You talk to so many people, you know, who coach and, you know, and are in the business, and it's like, what is the conversational
Look,
read?
even conversational itself has become something of an anathema, right?
Right.
Conversational has practically become a synonym for announcer, practically. You know, and it was the first I had heard it at Wovo, where suddenly it's like, I don't want to hear that conversational read. I want to hear an authentic read. And I'm sitting there listening and I'm going, okay. And at times I've heard that read described as real. I've heard that times as described as genuine. I've heard that described as authentic. I've heard it described as the real person read off the street.
Right.
But I do think that there's a real trend to doing less, but better. And the better doesn't go away. And that's not my phrase. That's Dieter Rams. Dieter Rams was, I think I'm saying that right. God, he was a designer. He did a lot of design for Braun. He was a German designer, very strong in minimalism. And he said, and one of his ethos was less, but better. And when I saw that, I said to myself, yes, that's a great way to try to talk about genuine, authentic, conversational, quote unquote, reads. Yes, you are doing less. However, the subtext has to be stronger. It has to be even more specific now than ever. That if you give multiple takes, maybe you need 3 different points of view on it, rather
Absolutely.
than just pausing or just making new melodies out of it. That's not conversational. It never has been that way. In the past, I might have advised people saying, once you make a strong set of decisions, play those decisions 3 times in a row, and that would be enough variety. I'm starting to question that. I'm starting to say to myself now, okay, maybe now make 3 different choices and play 3 different choices and make them strong choices, but still be willing to make 3 different choices to really reveal different subtexts.
Right.
That you
That
can
just
bring
made me
to
think
it.
of something.
What's
Has
that?
anybody ever recorded in a demo or had in a demo 2 cuts that are the exact same script, but
Done
read
differently.
and or produced in totally different ways?
Not that
The
I'm
way you would
aware
have
of,
an
but I don't.
audition with like an A and a B read, that would
Not,
never end up on a demo, right?
not that I'm aware of, but at the same time, if somebody was willing to go outside of the box that way and go for it, I think that could be interesting. I don't want to start a trend here or anything, but I think that's a very, very interesting notion. I think
They'd have
that
to be really uniquely different. I mean, they'd
I
have to
think
really
that
be saying different things.
I think that, well, with their subtext, for example, I think that if they were produced completely differently, I think that might mask the changes in the read. People might be a little bit more dazzled by the difference in production, but at the same time, a different production could highlight different parts of a different approach.
Right.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
It's a very, very interesting question. And if somebody did it, I think that they would have to do it really, really well. But also, I think it would have to be understood for what it is. And I think somebody putting that out and then having somebody else understand what they were doing to be able to appreciate it might be a hurdle a little too high to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about self-direction for a little bit, because self-direction is it possibly, I mean, as a voice actor with a home studio, self-direction is possibly the hardest skill that most people have to pick up, because we're not directed a lot of times. I mean, if it's a big commercial with an agency or something, there's always going to be, conferencing on that, and three guys listening at the same time. But when you're auditioning, how do you what are some of the keys to good self-direction, so that when your audition goes out there, you've made choices, whether the right choices or not. Sometimes the wrong choice is what's going to get their attention when you send out an audition like that.
Well, the first thing I say is that when you do multiple takes, the first thing I advise people to do is to listen to them in the reverse order that they recorded them, because that affords just a hint more objectivity. There's something about taking the time to experience it. Take 3 first, then take 2, and then take 1. That gives you a chance to just be able to get a bit of more of a 10,000-foot view for a moment. Because the goal should really be objectivity, if at all possible. And when I say objectivity, to not judge yourself. Just be able to listen to yourself inquisitively and attentively, but somewhat dispassionately, to be able to say, okay, what did I do? Because from there, you can begin to adjust.
Right.
If you hit a word too hard, for example, or you stressed a point, you have to be careful not to kid yourself. Oh, is somebody going to miss that? No, they're going to hear it. They're going to hear it. But don't judge yourself, because that's the thing that you did. You need to recognize that you did it. And then to say, okay, perhaps you say to yourself, all right, I hear that. On this next take, that's not going to be a problem, because I understand I did that before.
Right. Yeah.
And that's another way to really begin to start to give yourself permission to improve, by saying, this is what I've done. Listening with your eyes shut is very, very good, because it's the only people I think that really follow along with the script that closely are the writers, in general, and they're not the decision makers more often than not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. But again, just that bit, a little more objectivity, to listen with the eyes shut, to really understand it. And this sounds silly, but I tell people too, when you're listening, don't smush up your face. Don't sit there and just go, no, I'm not judging. I'm not judging. Get a little zen, just a little, because it'll help you to, it'll help you to hear. It'll help you to hear, and then be able to go, yeah, that was fast. So now I'm going to slow that down.
Exactly.
And when you begin to self-direct, do one thing, just one, where it's like, this time I'm going to go slower. And then understand, yes, that the next take it's going to happen, you're going to allow yourself to go slower. And then see how that affects things. I'm not going to hit that brand as hard.
Right.
And now see how that affects everything that goes on.
All right. Our guest, once again, if you're just wondering, is Hugh Klitzke, and we're talking about getting your demos right. And if you've got a question, now would be a fabulous time to throw it in the chat room, and we will get to those questions right after the break, which we're going to take right now. So don't go away. We'll be right back here on Voiceover Body Shop.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on the Voiceover Body Shop.
Have you noticed the specific demands of clients regarding our home VO studios? Are they at a professional level to record for broadcast? And what does that mean? To me, it means it doesn't sound bad. I've seen several now demanding cardioid condenser microphones. Some are great, and cheap ones not so great. So how do you choose? It's like standing in the checkout line at the supermarket, deciding which candy or mints you want to buy. So which is right for you? Make it easy on yourself and get the Harlan Hogan Signature Series VO1A, the first and only mic designed for voiceover performers by a voiceover performer. The VO1A faithfully captures deep tones without sounding bassy and has a silky smooth top end that's never harsh. A perfect sound palette for both male and female voiceover performers. Get the complete kit with mic cable and shock mount now. Go to voiceoveressentials.com where you'll see all their great products made just for us voiceover people.
Well, I'd like to tell you guys about our sponsor, Source Elements, the creators of Source Connect and Source Nexus and a lot of other tools. And if you haven't been to the site lately, I recommend you head over there because they've had a whole site redesign. They have a lot more useful educational content to help you feel oriented with what their tools are, what they're capable of doing. And it's a really good idea to get acquainted. If you don't know what Source Connect is, it's a tool used to connect studios to studios around the world. That includes yours. And if you want to be available for the big gigs and possibly remotely producing your next demo, because a lot of demo producers also use Source Connect, you might want to get ready. So head over there, get yourself set up with a subscription so they can get you onboarded, help you get set up, and all that will be included in the cost of your subscription when you do that. So source-elements.com, get started today.
I don't think there's a feeling quite like that moment when something you've auditioned for becomes something you get booked on, especially when it comes to audiobooks. You audition for an audiobook on ACX or in some other form or fashion, and then somebody says, "Hey, we like what you did. We want you to be our narrator." If that isn't a feeling that you've had lately because either you haven't figured out how to do audiobooks or because the efforts that you've put toward audiobooks just don't seem to be working, I've got a solution for you. Let's start with some free videos and then, if you want, registering for the ACX Masterclass. I'm David H. Lawrence the 17th. Along with Dan O'Day, I teach that class. And you can get to those free videos and to registration if you'd like at acxmasterclass.com/join. That's acxmasterclass.com/join. I'd love to help you get there.
This is Bill Ratner, and you're enjoying VoiceOver Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
And we're back with Hugh Klitzke. Once again, if you have a question, throw it in the chat room. And we got a bunch of questions for you from our worldwide audience that is tuning in specifically to hear you tonight, Hugh. So let's move to those.
I'm excited.
Oh,
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Okay. George, you get Mr. Romero's question.
All right. Frank asks, so what's the current trend on length of demos? You alluded to it earlier, but are we getting to short demo singularity? He said.
To short demo singularity. I think players are really interesting. At first I kind of, again, coming from the agency world, I just kind of at first turned my nose up to them. But I thought to myself, I realized from a very practical sense, somebody goes to your site, they can pick, bing, 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 go through and hear them one by one and pick what they want. That's really interesting, and that's really, really compelling. I think overall it's important to have a full demo object, though. It's, traditionally 60 seconds. Sometimes it can go longer. I don't think you need to be slavish to that, but 75 seconds is okay. I wouldn't go to 90. I would probably hang around 60, 67 seconds, somewhere around in there.
Yeah. But it's got to hold their attention if you're going to do it for that long.
Yeah.
Which is no easy feat.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Kate on YouTube asks, do you need to build a portfolio or is it case by case? I guess when you're working with somebody,
I'm not sure.
I'm not exactly sure.
I'm not sure what a portfolio is exactly. I'm not quite sure.
Well, I think with a demo, you're different types of reads that you would do. Not just strictly commercial, but you need to have a commercial demo and a narration demo and these various other things. But I think what she means is do you look and see, well, you need to have this kind of a demo, and then maybe you should try doing one like that sort of thing?
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of what's sometimes called the hybrid demo, because I think that's a little confusing. I think people will always take the path of least resistance, where it's, I want to hear what I hear, and then I want to hear the commercials. I want to hear them do narration. I want to hear them do audiobooks. And so I want to hear them do promos. There was a
Right.
trend for a little while of blending promo and commercial together. I never understood that quite, because those are two really, really different things. But then promo readers started to have to do more commercials. So then it was like a promo demo with some commercial elements in it, like brought to you by Old School. That way had become a trend coming back. And then agents had to go in and negotiate, saying, no, that's a commercial. You need to pay like that's a commercial. But it's in the context of of a promo. No. So something like that maybe should go on a promo demo. That little bit of commercial segment, for example.
Yeah, and I've differentiated my demos in strictly commercial, strictly announcer. I'm like, well, I need an announcer demo because that's what I get hired for, and you have to know who you are and your market in order to do those different things.
Some people have commercial announcer and some people have commercial conversational.
Right.
I've seen that. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat room said, "What if it says conversational but not announcery?" Are we talking about straightations of what an announcer is? There's like over-the-top announcer. There's
what they're saying. They just said the
Yeah.
phrase conversational but not announcery. So that means it's conversational, right?
right.
Right.
I guess that was tying into the whole point of that. Conversational is the new announcer.
Yeah, I mean but there are reasons why too, I think, because it's so difficult to describe, but if you hear it, it's like you could hear that the way the pause is used in an announcer way, but the read and the phrasing is conversation. So that can happen a lot in broadcast television or in podcasts. So it's like the net result is this kind of a hybrid thing. But since the pandemic has ended, there's the trend towards less and less, and speaking in the natural tessitura, in the natural register, not pushed in any way at all, to make things as if you are speaking to somebody who's so close you could reach out and put your hand on their forearm. That
Right.
physically close to you.
Actually, speaking of trends, one of the things that I do, which some find controversial for some reason, but I make processing presets for people's auditions. And so one of the things that I'm doing is I'm making judgment calls about EQ, for example, the balance of low end to high end, and tilting that back and forth, right? Or some of both, right? And have you found there's any kind of trend in terms of what's booking in terms of EQ? Because I'm hearing that brighter and less warm and less brighter and brighter is more of the trend. But I don't know if you've heard of a trend that way.
I have not heard of a trend that way. And because so much of what I do is focused on the read, I'm smart enough to let that live with guys like you about EQ and about home studio setup and about presets and all of that kind of thing. I can press record, I can press stop, I can edit. And then I'm smart enough to stop talking. Where I'm just sort of like, no, I'm going to go farm this out to my post guy because that's his thing.
Yeah.
I can make music choices, I can edit the music, I can understand the relationship between where I want the music to exist next to the narration.
Yeah.
And I can add sound design and I can make those choices and understand where all those things go aesthetically. And then I stop and I press that thing called export, and I send it to other people with the other
Mhm.
skill set to mix and master and clean up and do all of the post on
Right.
that way.
Yeah.
Because that's not my strength. That's not my strength as a producer.
Yeah. AJB voice actor who's listening and watching on YouTube, is it okay not to use a brand name in your demo? Seems sort of self-defeating, wouldn't it?
There were a couple of interesting theories around that. Somebody said to me once, it's like you play a demo for somebody, for 5 people, you're going to get 5 different opinions, right? And there were very interesting opinions around that. Some people felt like you didn't need the brand name because the brand was the most important thing was the read. I thought that was interesting. Other people said if you don't put the brand in there, they're going to get confused to know what the hell you're talking about. But if you put the brand in there, that might confuse them more because they may think, oh, they've booked this, therefore I can't use them for this. Or they may have non-compete, which means they may not be able to go out for this.
Right.
So all of those thoughts and those thinkings, suddenly you can give yourself a massive headache just trying to second guess every possible negative opinion. So I'm always of the mind where, and sometimes now they don't even have the brand name in the finished spot. How many car commercials have we seen where it's a wonderfully written script? They don't even name the car. It's just on the screen as a logo at the end. Some moments I've sat there and said, say the name of the car. Just put it in there. It's going to button it all nicely. Just do it. Why? Because the script seems to need it. That's why. And then I go back and I listen to it and I'm like, yep, good. I'm glad we have that. Or no, it's more about them. Get the name out of there. I don't want that.
Right.
You have to make all of these aesthetic decisions, all of these choices. And somebody made a mistake and somebody got punished for it. And suddenly somebody thinks that's gospel and the only way to do it. And that's just not the way the world works. That sometimes people never get caught, and sometimes people do get caught, and sometimes an agency complains when they hear their stuff used, and other times they don't complain. It's very, very all over the place, and there are no hard and fast rules, but you can sit there and you need to pay strong attention to the things that can show you off to the very best of your ability. If you're a ballerina and you're exquisite at dancing Balanchine, you should, with or without permission, you should do that because you have that skill set. And if the estate complains, maybe then you have to adjust. But you're not pretending to be a Balanchine trained dancer because the man has been dead for a very long time. It's now, with his estate. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There are all kinds of reasons why to do things and to not do things. You have to make sure that the choices that are made on your behalf serve you first.
Right.
Great point.
Question from Debbie Irwin, because she's here. Which man would you like to introduce me on my demo? Sexy grandpa? Joking aside, well, that's a creative choice too. Not all male voices are the same, and if that's the first thing a person is hearing, especially if you're
male
introducing,
slate.
male slate for a female voice actor.
What's the question, Deb?
Who would you want on the front of her demo?
Of her demo?
Yeah.
What sexy grandpa does Debbie need to have on her?
I could see her as being a Sam Elliott kind of a girl. I could see that.
Okay.
Just go right straight up and down famous that way. Or maybe I could see her with a cowboy though. So maybe like K-Cause or something like that. Little Kevin Costner up front. Bringing some of the California cowboy reel that he does. you know. McConaughey might trend a little bit just a little too young, you know. She did say which sexy grandpa should be on the front of her demo. So yeah, I would say either you go for the vintage, or you go for the classic.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the question from Jeff Ciarto.
All right. He says, I find at times I end up reading too much into the script and extremely critical of what I've done, much to my detriment. It says thoughts, and then it says I wasn't conversational. Oh, the thoughts in his head are things like I wasn't conversational, or I'm too much announcer. I guess he wants to know how to get that out of his head, I guess.
Hard for me to answer that without actually talking to the person, but I would suggest that if they could get just a little bit of distance, just a touch, even if it's recording it, stopping, not listening back, standing up, going away, but then really going away, you know, go do half the dishes or something, you know,
and then listen again. Yeah.
And then come back and listen again, just with trying to just let yourself understand that you got to get a little bit of space, just a little bit of space.
Yeah. I like your idea of closing your eyes while you're listening back and, you know, and asking yourself the question, did I make myself clear in what I was saying? Or did I just sound like I was reading a bunch of words? Did I really communicate it? And if you close your eyes, I mean, I usually have to close my eyes when listening to people anyway, because they're going so fast and you have visual stimulation, and sometimes I can't follow both at once. So just really focusing in on your voice is really important.
When I directed a lot, when I directed all those auditions, I would close my eyes all the time. But then I began to realize that as a coach, I had to temper that, because when I was directing an audition, I didn't care how you got there. All I cared was that you did get there. So I'm giving you a direction note. I don't care how you get there. And then I want to hear it. But when I'm coaching someone, it's very different, because I have to balance being objective and understanding what they're doing with understanding how they're doing it, and then being able to correct their how. So I've had to temper some of my own process as I've moved from purely directing to coaching with some direction. It's very different.
It's kind of like when we listen to audio, and we want the audio raw, and we know the producers want the audio raw, but we do know that some people are still going to be doing some processing. And is that wrong? Because is it better that everything they do be technically pure, or is it better what they do sound technically good? Right? And so we fight that little battle. I think I do anyway. Fight that little battle at times. So it ties in a little bit to what we do from a technical standpoint.
Yeah. Mike Durner, who provided us with this lovely mic flag, asks, what should never go in a demo?
The offbeat for its own sake. The thing I wanted to include just because I liked it, that everything has to have a purpose.
Right.
Oh, I just threw in this old spot because I booked it and I liked it. No, it sounds like an old spot. It just is an old spot. Oh, this was the thing I was known for.
Right.
No, you're looking to address marketplace right now.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. Things that just sound wildly out of production character. You know, just so different, where it's jarring, where suddenly I'm not listening to you read, I'm listening to the audio quality of that thing.
Right. All righty. Well, Hugh, thanks so much for being with us tonight and imparting this information to us. If they want to get a hold of you and if they want some coaching on it, where would they go? I would imagine it's
okay. So it's over
that.
I don't know which way to go. So my own site is a disaster, but it's a disaster in process. So I direct everybody to vonow.co, and if you go there, you'll find the coaching and classes page, and you can book a free consultation. And yes, it's just click on it. We have a conversation. We set up a time. They usually are about 30 minutes. Usually they run longer. And then we can talk about you. Usually I give people scripts up front so they have something they can read for me. I can critique you a little bit. And then to really try to understand what it is that you're looking for and how I might be able to help you. So vonow.co, go to the classes and coaching, hit on the one that of the photo that looks like me, you know, as opposed to the beautiful photo of Deb Irwin, who's there too. And, you know, set up a free consultation with me, and I'd love to talk with you.
All righty. Well, thanks for being with us tonight. We really appreciate your time and imparting your wisdom, and it's just great to see you again, too.
Great to see you, too.
All righty.
Great to meet you, George. Thanks.
All right. Well, we'll be right back and wrap things up and re-rack it for Tech Talk right after these important messages, so don't go away.
You're still watching VOBS?
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
Well, here's something I don't normally do. I just hit the timer. 60 seconds to talk about voiceactor.com. What is voiceactor.com? It is a place to get, if you're just starting out in voiceover, you have to have a website, no matter where you are. Once you get your demos, and we've been talking about demos the whole night, you've got to get them on a website. What do you need on a website? You need your name, your demos, and your contact information. And you're not going to dazzle people with artistic expression so much with your website. So what they do at voiceactor.com is they have templated websites where you can go in, insert your information easily, maybe change the color of the backgrounds a little bit, add your own pictures, but you can literally be online in half an hour to 45 minutes as opposed to 6 months. So go over to voiceactor.com and get your website set up now.
We are the World Voices Organization,
also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. VoiceOver is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
and to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
a supportive and creative community,
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
our exclusive demo player for your personal website,
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library,
our annual WovoCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network,
webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
We speak for those who speak for a living.
Yeah, hi, this is Carlos Alazraqui, the voice of Rocco, and you're watching VoiceOver Body Shop.
Yes, you are. And next week on this very show, we will have Tech Talk number 105. Unless, of course, you are watching the show live right at this moment, you could just stay with us, and we will get into Tech Talk, and you can ask your questions in real time, and George and I will answer them in real time, whether they're the right answers or not. So
I just put mine into Chat GPT.
Okay.
Read back whatever comes out.
Because you've written so much already, it's going to just regurgitate everything you've already written anyway.
It will just convincingly lie about the facts for you. That's why you're here, after all, right?
Yes. Anyway, our thanks to Hugh Klitzke for joining us tonight, because imparting all that very important wisdom about demos, because it's a really important piece of our business. Let's see. You still have a coupon for people who will go over to George the Tech?
We still give you guys 10% off. I don't see it used very often, which is fine bizarre, but VOBS Fan 10 still gets you 10% off any services bookings at georgethe.tech.
Right. And you can find me over at homevoiceoverstudio.com, where that's where I do my thing with helping you with your home studio when I'm not doing voiceover work for all my major clients all over the world, which is fun stuff. Speaking of people all over the world, who are our donors of the week? Well, we start off with Grace Newton,
Christopher Epperson,
Robert Leadham,
Stephen Chandler,
Casey Clack,
Jonathan Grant,
Tom Pinto,
Greg Thomas,
A Doctor Voice,
Antland Productions,
Martha Kahn,
949 Designs,
Sarah Borges,
Philip Sapir,
Brian Page,
Patty Gibbons,
Rob Ryder,
Shauna Pennington Baird,
Don Griffith,
Trey Mosley,
Diana Birdsall,
there she is, Maria Mackus,
and Sandra Manwiller. Thanks, everybody. That's how we keep this show technically perfect, because you guys are contributing, and we really, really appreciate it. Also, join our mailing list. If you go to our website, or if you're watching from our website right now, go down there where it says join our mailing list. And that way you'll get a notice of what's coming up this week and reminding you real close to when we do it. So we're like, oh, I should do this now. So join the mailing list. A big thank you to our amazing sponsors, Harlan Hogan's VoiceOver Essentials,
VoiceOver Extra,
Source Elements,
VOHeroes.com,
VoiceActor.com, and WorldVoices.org. World-voices.org, where I am the president, and you will join now. Thanks to Jeff Holman for getting all those questions for us in the chat room. We really appreciate that. And Sue Merlino for directing the show tonight and making it technically perfect. No mistakes tonight at all. Anyway, that's going to do it for us this week. We're going to re-rack it and set for Tech Talk. Come on, stick around, ask your questions, listen to George and I talk about home voiceover studios, because no one knows more about them than we do. So, guess what? This is not an easy business. That's why we're here, to give you the information on all of these different things that run together in our business, all the things you got to know, and along with the technical stuff. So it's not easy to get everything right, but we have discovered that if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop,
or VOBS. Stay tuned for Tech Talk. All righty.
I could see Jeff was waiting in the wings to say his BS words, but we have to add him to the stream. So we didn't know
we saved that for Tech Talk, Jeff. So
okay. I saw him sit there. He was just waiting. He wanted to say BS.
He gets his chance in a minute.
Why am I still here?
Because you haven't left
you never
yet.
left.
We told you we could kick you out, but you can just leave by yourself.
All right. I just can't get enough of you guys.
Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
All right, take care.
Our pleasure. Have a good night.
All righty. Time for some tech talk. And boy, let's see if we got some questions coming up. If you've got a question for us, throw it in the chat room right now, because we want to be able to answer your questions, because that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you ask them, we can't answer them.
You know what? I'm going to do something different.
What?
I'm going to stand up for this part.
Legs bothering you?
Just going to change the energy.
Oh, okay.
It just was an excuse to show off my electric lift desk. Of course. That's the only reason I'm doing this.
Well, I can show off mine too, and have it go up and down. No, actually, the camera's not on the desk anymore. So.
Oh, that's right. It's on the wall, right?
Yeah, it's attached to a boom, and so I can move it. Anyhow, Okay,
All right.
we'll take it up to 6:05, and then we'll hit it on to Tech Talk. Again, if you got a question, throw it in the chat room, no matter if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube or perhaps on LinkedIn. Love to have you there too, because we're broadcasting at all these things. Okay, so
I
you've got a-
stand because I can, and I'm
Okay.
grateful that I can.
and I will sit because I can sit. But I am about 99% back from my surgery. You
Yeah,
know,
that's great.
the shoulders are working, the neck's working, my feet are working, which is the most important thing.
They go one foot in front of the other when you walk.
Right? They don't, cross over each other. You hit a bump in the sidewalk. I don't do a face
Right.
plant anymore. Which is making the dog really happy because anytime I would fall, she's just like, "We're gonna keep
Okay.
walking," and I'm like, anyway.
All right.
Okay, 6:05. Are we ready for some tech talk?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right.
4, 3.
Hey, it's time for VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk. Tech
Yeah.
Talk.
Tech Talk.
All right.
Tech
There-
Talk.
Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Thank you very much. He's been waiting all week to do that. So if you got to, and by the way, this is Tech Talk number 105. 105 Tech Talks.
Yeah, baby.
That is 105 hours of more voiceover home studio tech than you'll ever get anywhere else, because we've been doing it longer than anybody else, which means we know more than everybody else. So listen to us. Anyway, put your questions in the chat room. Get ready, because we got some great stuff for you tonight. You've got lots of cool stuff. I'm going to talk about kids and tech. So if you got kids, keep them in the room. It's time for VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk right now. VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com, become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the industry association of freelance voice talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George. And if you're wondering, I'm Dan Leonard.
Oh, sorry. I'm just jamming out over here. I'm George the Tech.
This is VoiceOver,
Body Shop.
or VOBS. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Talk.
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech Talk.
Thank you, Jeff. All right. Oh, that was perfect. Now we're getting into good Foley stuff here. This is just fabulous.
Oh, man. If we could have all these giant color flashing buttons, we got to press them once in a while.
That's right. I've got,
Yeah. that
and I got
can't go wrong.
FDR.
Can't go wrong with that.
Never mind.
It's Bjork.
Bjork. Icelandic music sucks. If you've ever listened to it, it's
She's
just,
the weirdest artist I've ever seen sell out in minutes. I wanted
Right.
to see her years ago, and it was
and
sold
she's
out.
the best that they have in Iceland. So it's
She's amazing.
fascinating. Actually, I like
Yeah.
her stuff, but
She's amazing. Yeah.
yeah, and of course, everyone remembers the swan outfit that she wore.
No, you never forget the swan or any of her outfits,
I
really.
can't even remember what award show that was for, but it doesn't really matter.
MTV, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, might have been for the Academy Awards. Anyway, we got lots of tech to talk about tonight, and we'd love to have your questions, and that's why you're here. So put them in the chat room so Jeff Holman can feel useful and make sure that we get those questions. So
Video?
Let's start off
Because
with
nobody else has.
No, not
I
yet.
added the video because I wanted to cue it up, but
Oh,
instead it immediately played it without
Okay,
my having a
please remove that.
chance.
Right, because we
cue
have
it
to,
up.
we have to do what we refer to as plug-a-palooza. Because remember, everybody has to have a home voiceover studio. If they're a voice actor, if they're an accountant, perhaps it's not so important, just having sharp pencils and stuff. But if you're a voice actor, you have to have a home voiceover studio. It is a completely unique environment. And as we always say, every voice is different, every room is different, and you need someone who understands how to make you sound like you and not like a bunch of other people, unless you're doing characters.
In a lot of cases now, even the gear is different.
Absolutely.
We're very picky about what microphones we want you to use. Well, I think maybe we're more picky about what microphones we don't want you to use. But
that's true,
there's
too.
definitely unique gear that we want you to look at, too.
Right. I mean, we've been finding all sorts of cool stuff. And, George and I are not easily impressed. I mean, you're constantly sampling things. You're constantly buying things, too. But
I try to do as little as possible. Yeah.
You have a bad case of gear
I bought a new
acquisitions.
Bluetooth speaker.
Oh, okay.
I did buy a new Bluetooth speaker.
What was wrong with the old Bluetooth speaker?
It was stolen, but that's another story.
That's okay. That has nothing to do with I have to have as many Bluetooth speakers
That's correct.
as possibly, he with the most Bluetooth
correct.
speakers wins. Anyway,
he with the most Bluetooth devices on their iPhone that they can connect to wins. Maybe
Right.
that's it.
Yeah,
how many Bluetooth devices do you have in your Bluetooth devices list? Probably half of those don't exist, but
yeah, I think I just have some headphones and various other things.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
But then again, I'm very old school. I don't want to do what all the kids are doing and have all that stuff. And and you're under 50, so you still count as a kid.
I'm a Bluetooth addict. It's
Right.
true. It is true.
Anyway, if you need help with your home voiceover studio and want to get the help you need in creating it to fit your lifestyle, to fit your what type of work you're doing, you can work with one of us because we've done it all. I'm a professional voice actor. George has been working with voice actors for over 15 years and getting their studios down. We know what you need. If you want to work with George, where do you go? You go over to
GeorgeThe.tech. That is our home for performer-friendly techs. That's our new brand over here at George the Tech. We support all sorts of different producer, creator, actors, and musicians with their studios and design, build, tech support, train, or just listen. The sound check is really, really important. And that's absolutely, if you don't know what to do, if you've already gone to our first timer thing, filled out the little form and said, here's my issues, the next thing you should do is get a sound check. And Dan, he doesn't call it sound checks. What do you call it over at your website?
Oh, at the homevoiceoverstudio.com. Sometimes I'm trying to, second guess myself on this, but I have the specimen collection cup. Oh, you just happen to have one too, where you can click on that and you can deposit your sample of audio, and I will analyze it for you. I will give you my thorough rundown of what's right about it, what you could improve. If it's like way off base and you need some more help, we can arrange that. But most of the time it's like, your volume's a little low. Maybe there's a little too much background noise. Here's how you can fix that.
And that's important. We will tell you what is
exactly
right. We'll tell you that if it's right as is, we will tell you that.
Absolutely.
We are not going to try to sell you things you don't need. So
right. Yeah. Also mention that, I'm on George's staff. If you call 911 on his thing, I got one this week.
Did you really?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Why does it sound so distant? And when that happens, there are two reasons. One, the mic is backwards. And the other one is you haven't set your interface right. And you're probably on
was it?
It was the had the interface because they had done it before.
Right.
He says, why does it sound distant? Because you're talking on the laptop's mic, not on your own mic. Right. And usually that's because you're on a PC and the PC will say, well, I like that interface better than this one. Or I don't think that interface is going to work. So I'm going to make sure that it's the laptop microphone doing it.
The worst thing is when you plug something into the microphone jack of the PC,
right,
and some other software thinks that is actually what you want to use. and it switches away from the mic, the USB interface that you were using
Right.
to the microphone jack, because it's so smart that when you plug in a microphone, well, obviously you want to use that 10-cent microphone you just plugged into the microphone jack for voiceover. So yeah, that is, it doesn't matter what you run, that is still a problem for the ages.
Right.
Which mic are you actually recording into?
Right. So if it sounds distant, chances are it's one of those two things. And, I'm thinking, well, it could be that, could be that. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. Mac or PC? Mac. Okay. That's the thing.
No, Mike, you cannot use someone else's specimen to pass an audio test.
No, because I know what you sound like. Anyway, it's time for your update, and you have a video for us. So tell us what's going on.
Zoom marches on. They update it constantly. And I'd heard about a new version. Well, I went to download the new version, which as of this video is 5.14.10. And I was excited because in the release notes, which are long, like the amount of stuff that they add or fix is mind-boggling. One of the things was persistent channel selections. Now, this doesn't mean anything to you if you've never bothered to set your channels in Zoom. And most of you probably don't need to, because if you're using a standard 2-channel audio interface, keeping it simple, it's not a big deal. However, many of you don't listen and you still use these. And I appreciate it because you have to pay me to set them up for you, which is always nice. And
he's
Zoom
holding up
will,
an Apollo twin, folks, in case you're listening to the podcast.
And Zoom, correct. Thanks for reminding me that we're a podcast. The Apollo twin is much more complicated. It looks like it's just 2 channels because it has 2 jacks on the back for mics, but it's really more like 10, right? That's how these things work. So you can set which channel you're recording in or sending into Zoom, which can be useful unless, of course, Zoom forgets that setting for you every stinking time. Well, they supposedly fixed that. And here's was my experience in trying that out. Video, because nobody else has.
George the Tech.
Okay, well, Zoom has updated their software once again. I don't have my Zoom set up to install the latest updates. I like to wait until it's had bug fixes and then allow those updates to install. And even then, I do it manually, right? I'm very careful about how I use my Zoom. I use it every day. It's part of how I run my business. It's how I provide tech support. It's crucial. So I don't let it auto update. So I finally decided to try out version 5.14. Blah, blah, blah. Well, what is the latest version truly at this moment? The version I'm running here is 5.14.10. So that theoretically means there's been 10 patches to version 5.14 since it came out. Now, what is different in this version? Let's take a look. It's all about sound here, of course, and that's what we care about here at George the Tech. Let's take a look at our settings and go to audio, and let's see what's new here. Live performance audio. It's a beta, so I guess I did install something with beta in it, but it's recommended for multiple instruments or voices in different locations. Now, all the details they will give you is what you see when you mouse over the little question mark. Reduces audio lag during live performances when musicians are on separate Zoom clients. Well, of course they're going to be on separate Zoom clients, right? Requires high-speed internet or call quality will be significantly reduced. Well, that's what we'd expect anyway, right? If the internet goes bad, we want the quality to degrade so we can stay connected. Okay, that's fine. So that's live performance audio. Does it give you any more information than that? Not that I can see. If I click on advanced, nothing more to read here, just the usual echo cancellation algorithm, which is either auto or aggressive. That's all you get. Now, let's take a look at what happened to our original sound for musicians, and are these related? Well, we don't know, because all you get is a radio button that chooses between these two. It's a toggle. So when you're in live performance audio, is it also in high fidelity music mode? Don't know. Is it using echo cancellation? Don't know. Is it stereo? Don't know. So there you go. This is the way Zoom rolls out audio features. One of the things that Zoom said was going to be a part of this new version is the ability to persistently store your channel assignments. So anybody that's been using Zoom and taking advantage of the channel assignment feature knows how frustrating it's been that you could not have your channel assignments persistent, meaning every time you would join a Zoom session or even change audio input settings, you would have to change your channel assignments. It says here that persistent audio channel selection is one of the new features. However, I go into Zoom, I look where the channel selection feature existed, and it was right here, right above audio profile, and it's gone. It's no longer there. So here I am, hoping to have the channel selection feature available and persistent. And not only that, it's just plain gone. I don't see it anywhere. Certainly it's not going to be in the general menu. That would be plain silly. It's not in the video menu. That would also be silly. Really, it'd be silly for it to be anywhere other than audio. So did they hide it somewhere else? Let's look at microphone and choose our input channel, chat. That's my input channel from my Rodecaster Pro 2. There's no other channel selection capable there. Let's try our mute microphone input menu area and see if it's somewhere buried in there. Just the testing things are there. Audio settings just takes us back here. So anyway, this was supposed to be a tutorial on how to use Zoom properly. And yet, with this version, 5.1.4.10, I can't choose channels, let alone have those channel selections be persistent. If anybody has any comments, please leave them below. If I'm crazy, tell me if I'm missing it. And if you want to yell at Zoom in chorus with me, we know how to get a hold of them through the folks at officehours.global, because Zoom comes and guests. Representatives of Zoom come and guests on there all the time, and we have probably a pretty good chance of getting somebody's attention. So let me know. Anyway, this is just a slight rant / tutorial or something. I don't even know what this video is. Anyway, George the Tech, come find me at georgethe.tech and my whole tech team, where we provide performance-friendly techs. Take care.
One gets the impression that perhaps Zoom is trying to pay attention to what everybody's asking for, but they don't really know what it is they're asking for.
Yeah, they heard they're supposed to wear running shoes, but they didn't know they go on the feet or something. Right. I don't know what it is. They just keep missing certain aspects to their technologies. I mean, I'm really glad that it's evolving, and we do rely on it so heavily and for so much. But it's frustrating when an update removes things. You're just like,
where did it go?
Yeah. So I mean, it is. I do like that Zoom has. There's a setting where you can say, do not install every update. Install I think they call it a delayed schedule. I really like that, because if that new update pushes out and there's an unknown bug that just hits everybody, you're kind of immune because, well, you stayed home that week. You didn't go to school. You didn't get sick, right? So you didn't run the new version. So that's not a bad idea to stick on the older versions. So I'm using, you guys already saw me talk about this mic quite a bit. This is the Earthworks Ethos mic. And, you know, somebody's saying, I think it was Mike McGonigal actually said, hey, you don't need the pop screen. It sounds fine without it, right? So I'll take it off and it's fine. But I'm still not, because I'm using it down below like this, I'm still a little bit prone to plosives. Ooh, yeah, there's one. when they're bad, right? So I was looking at the windscreen the other day. I stuck my finger in there and I was like, wait a minute, there's something more to this windscreen. And I pulled out this little guy.
More foam.
So this is a multi-layered pop solution, really, right? On the outside is a windscreen. Now this is probably the least useful thing. In fact, if I was to put this on without this little guy, pop, 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 pop.
Not as bad.
Not as bad, right? But pop, pop. Still get some plosives, right? This little strange foam thing is really the key to the thing's pop filtering. This thing is really what's doing it. Like pop, 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 pop. This little doodad right here is it. Well, I've seen a pop screen for large diaphragm mics that is basically a little holder that just holds a big disc made out of this stuff, whatever this stuff is. And so what they've done is they've integrated it into their pop screen, which I thought was extremely clever.
Right.
And so what you're looking at here is you're looking at the foamy thing, thinking that's really doing the heavy lifting, but it's actually what's inside that counts. So I thought that was a cool little discovery. Thought I would share that with you guys.
If you're using that particular microphone.
If you're using that particular, but I bet with a little bit of research, you could probably find this stuff, cut a little block of it out and shove it into your own whatever a microphone's windscreen is and get the same effect out of it. I know you're not supposed to pop the mic.
That's
Proper
right.
mic placement means you're not going to pop the mic.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. You don't hear plosives from me.
And having the mic, this is the whole point, is also having the mic from below and pointing up is the best way to accidentally pop your mic. So we don't recommend this placement for voiceover, but we do it on camera a lot for various reasons. Now, microphone related, but absolutely completely new technology that just popped up on my radar through a colleague at officehours.global is this piece of, I would call it science fiction.
Okay. Show
Let me
us.
show you this. The Everything microphone. It is a new microphone from a company called Konos. And it's called the Everything microphone because it is a microphone array. And inside this black non-microphone looking thing, which, by the way, did you notice the
USB.
plug on the bottom?
Yeah.
It's an Ethernet.
Oh, I was going to say that's a net cable. Okay.
It's a net cable, right? So the mic connects to its brain or the controller box via Ethernet cable, Cat 6 or whatever. And then you put the microphone wherever you need it. Well, what this thing is doing, among other things, is it's not even a sound field microphone, unless that's what they call it. It's actually, I'll read it to you. A compact 80-element, high-fidelity, high-sensitivity array with adjustable directivity and optional real-time noise filtering to capture the clearest sound at a distance, even in the most challenging sonic conditions. That's what this thing supposedly does.
That's pretty specific.
So inside that little black metal tube box thing, there are 80 capsules. 80. Count them 80. And so this brain allows you to change the pickup pattern of the microphone by twisting this little knob. So the three main pickup patterns are narrow, which is more like a hypercardioid. You have mid beam, which would be like a standard cardioid maybe, and wide beam. Wide beam is the most unique, really, because it's really picking up only what's in front and nothing what's behind it. But then you also notice there's a yellow and there's a blue and a yellow. The blue is the front of the microphone, what you're picking up. The yellow is the rear of the microphone. So you can actually choose to record the rear as well and balance how much of the ambient background sound there is in the microphone. Now, would you do this in a voiceover booth? I don't think so. But it's an interesting idea for sound designers. And it has 3 microphone jacks, which is pretty bizarre because you can choose to record the front side of the pattern, the rear side of the pattern, and then the pattern that you've chosen, essentially, which is the combination. I think that's what the pattern that is that you're selecting. Actually, I have no idea. I don't really know what that means.
But there's a nice image of Pac-Man on there, which is
exactly. It's an interesting one. Now, I thought it interesting that in the product description they talk about noise reduction, and the only reason I would think that they would build that in is to a feature that's accessible directly within their, I don't know if it's in the hardware or something, is because it needs it. And what I've known from microphones is the smaller the capsules, the higher the self noise. If you take 80 capsules and combine them all together,
yikes,
there's going to be some noise. It's going to have a hiss for sure. So, I think the noise reduction that they talk about as being more of a tool to deal with environmental noise is really more a tool to deal with the mic's own self noise. But we'll see, because as far as I know, this is not fully available yet. It says where to buy.
Because I was going to ask price point on this.
Price point, if you had to ask, is the price point maybe? It doesn't say. It is. Well, it does say that it is available from a few dealers, including True Audio. And this is really a tool that's very clearly looking to the live location production sound market.
Right.
You need a mic that gets rid of background noise. Yeah, they say these guys don't. They're slated as a dealer, but you can't buy it yet. You can't find Konos on their site. But it looks really fascinating. Where is it relevant to voiceover? Don't know yet. But if it means I can put a mic up in a very substandard situation with noise and other issues, maybe you've always wanted to have a room with glass on two sides of your booth, I don't know, and you're trying to steer the pickup right at the voice and ignore everything else, this could be kind of the next level of being able to do something like that. I don't know. It's new, crazy gear. Costs probably $3,000 to $5,000 as far as might be. That'd be my best possible guess. But if it does what it says on the tin and it's less than $1,000, well, maybe we'll talk about it some more on the show.
Kind of reminiscent of that AKG mic that was square and long that we would use in radio, but
yeah,
I can't remember the number of
or
that mic.
Wait, was that the Sennheiser 441?
Maybe it was the Sen 441.
Kind of looked like it was almost square in cross section.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a really good mic.
It was.
It's a really good mic. I
used
don't
that
know
on
if
a
they
lot of
still
radio
make it, but if
stations.
you find one at a yard sale for $10, definitely pick it up.
Yeah.
All right, that's my tech update. Dan, you're going to talk about kids and VO tech.
Yeah. I've been dealing with a lot of parents lately who apparently are not voice actors, but their kids are voice actors. There's one right around the corner. I'm walking down the street. The phone rings. George is like, this guy's around the corner from you. So I walk down there with Mishka and I knock on the door. He goes, service with a smile.
He was shocked.
Yeah. I mean, he watches the show a lot. And
yeah, that was great.
Yeah. But it wasn't him. It's his son who's doing stuff for
Vitano.
animation.
Aaron
Yeah.
Vitano, that was the name, yep.
Yeah, and the a lot of animation and gaming companies they're hiring kids because they want authentic voices. Well, if you don't know anything about recording and your kids think they do, neither of you probably do, and and I keep finding that out no matter who I talk to, and I'm going into a lot of people's closets and they're like, okay, get your kid in here. Let's see how tall he is. Here's how you record. And the parent is trying to learn how to record when in reality, the kid should know how to record because by the time they're older and are still professional voice actors, it'll be second nature to them. And, and I try to teach it to people, but if they're a parent that has no idea what they're doing, you're really behind the eight ball on this. Kids don't seem to understand recording properly. They think you're just supposed to talk into the microphone, and that's how you do that. Or they don't understand acoustics, or all the things that you and I talk about all the time, George, just totally lost on parents. The kids, they're even more lost than the parents. So if you got a kid that is starting in voiceover and is booking work, how many times do I hear, my son wanted to do it. We did a demo. We did an audition, and he booked the first job. Give him a big head.
That's the part
all the time.
I'm really concerned about with my own daughter, right? I'm like, you're going to go through coaching until Martha says you are ready. No, we're not going to take any shortcuts because that is a concern.
Right. But at least you know how to record. And I figure she's picked up something here or there. But for the most part, if you've got a kid and you're trying to get a voiceover studio, contact us. I like working with people with kids because I got them too. They're not really kids anymore, but I've taught them how to record.
Would you recommend anything differently to a parent who's getting stuff to record a kid versus an actor just recording themselves?
Yeah, maybe a lower mic stand. That sort of thing, and because really, I mean, mic height is really important. I have to teach them this is proper mic technique. Don't defy that. As long as you keep things the way you're supposed to, it shouldn't be a problem. And and of course, I think engineers realize, okay, it's a kid. They're looking for the performance, not the recording, but you want to have it as clean as possible. So it's something else that if you don't know, perhaps you need to contact one of us. Or if you have a friend who has a kid in voiceover, tell them to talk to us. Anyway, we got a bunch of questions tonight, which we love more than life itself. Well, maybe not that much. So stay tuned for that. We'll get to those questions right after these important messages. So don't go away here on VoiceOver Body Shop. We'll be right back.
This is Ariana Ratner, and you're enjoying VoiceOver Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
Have you noticed the specific demands of clients regarding our home VO studios? Are they at a professional level to record for broadcast? And what does that mean? To me, it means it doesn't sound bad. I've seen several now demanding cardioid condenser microphones. Some are great, and cheap ones not so great. So how do you choose? It's like standing in the checkout line at the supermarket, deciding which candy or mints you want to buy. So which is right for you? Make it easy on yourself and get the Harlan Hogan Signature Series VO1A, the first and only mic designed for voiceover performers by a voiceover performer. The VO1A faithfully captures deep tones without sounding bassy and has a silky smooth top end that's never harsh. A perfect sound palette for both male and female voiceover performers. Get the complete kit with mic cable and shock mount now. Go to voiceoveressentials.com where you'll see all their great products made just for us voiceover people.
Source Elements. Now's your chance. Did you send me anything to read today? Nope. I'm going to make it up for you again. So let's do it. Source-elements.com. What a company. They have nose to the grindstone the last few years to create a new version of Source Connect that completely rethinks the way the software operates, the workflow and everything. And it's coming this year probably. But in the meantime, you want to get in early and get in now. If you sign up for a subscription, you can get established as a Source Connect available or Source Connect accessible voiceover actor, which opens you up to another echelon of voiceover work. It really does. It also puts you in a big searchable database of voiceover studios that have Source Connect and talent who have voiceover capable Source Connect studios. In fact, you can actually in the system designate whether you're just talent or talent and an engineer or talent and a studio, and make yourself available in the database as well. So there's just a lot of ways that Source Connect can be helpful. And we recommend you get set up, get started, sign up, get yourself your subscription. Why a subscription? Because you'll get ongoing support, you'll get help to get it started, and all of that's going to be covered under that subscription cost. So we feel these days that's the way to go. If you want to get started, source-elements.com. And now let's get to those questions right after this.
I don't think there's a feeling quite like that moment when something you've auditioned for becomes something you get booked on, especially when it comes to audiobooks. You audition for an audiobook on ACX or in some other form or fashion, and then somebody says, hey, we like what you did. We want you to be our narrator. If that isn't a feeling that you've had lately because either you haven't figured out how to do audiobooks or because the efforts that you put toward audiobooks just don't seem to be working, I've got a solution for you. Let's start with some free videos and then, if you want, registering for the ACX Masterclass. I'm David H. Lawrence the 17th. Along with Dan O'Day, I teach that class. And you can get to those free videos and to registration if you'd like at acxmasterclass.com/join. That's acxmasterclass.com/join. I'd love to help you get there.
Hi, this is Bill Farmer, and you are watching VoiceOver Body Shop. It's great.
And we're back, and we have a pile of questions to get through. So
we sure do.
Yeah, and of course, the thing about all these questions is we have an answer for them. And especially with this first question from Eve Florin, what's the best way to deal with sibilance? I bought a Waves plugin, but honestly don't quite understand if it's making it better or even more fundamentally, what the split on this plugin really means. If you're a fan of Waves plugins, is the sibilance plugin the one that you suggest running across the whole track or just selectively? How does one decide if it's actually necessary? I notice that I can suppress T sounds too. Well, we have opinions about that. I'm not a big fan of de-essing and all these other things. They have a place. To me, everything is physical. If you want to suppress sibilance, don't press your tongue so hard against your teeth or the roof of your mouth. Learn to relax. You know, people say, well, I have a very sibilant voice. If you're talking to them in their kitchen, you don't hear any sibilants. The only reason you'd hear sibilants is improper mic technique, or you're not relaxing your tongue enough. But if you can't do that, there's always waves. Explain to them how to put it in there.
Well, I want to even complicate the answer even more, and that is who is determining that it sounds sibilant?
Exactly.
Is the client thinking it sounds sibilant, or do you think it sounds sibilant? Or did you never have any issues with sibilants until some random person? It's always somebody. It's always somebody. I'd love to know who somebody is.
It's this hand
Somebody
reaching out
told
in the
me
dark.
I sound sibilant, right? That it gets into your head, and then you think you must be sibilant. All it takes is one person with the wrong kind of headphones, listening to it back on terrible speakers, to have the impression that you're sibilant, to make you think you're sibilant. The only people that will determine whether you truly are sibilant are audio engineers that work with voiceover people all day, people like us. We will help you figure out what it's supposed to sound like, whistle, and we'll let you know if you really, truly are sibilant. And then if you are truly sibilant and the things that Dan just mentioned to you aren't available to you, or just for some reason not working out for you, we'll be much better able to find you a solution that works for you. Waves plugins are fantastic, of course. They have a huge variety of them, and they have several different de-esser plugins. We actually had a Waves series of webinars at George the Tech, in which Michael Pearson Adams, who's from Waves, came and taught the software, and he actually did compare and contrast the different sibilance tools. And the one called Sibilance is the newest of their suite. So theoretically, it's the best sounding. Does it mean it's the easiest to use? Not necessarily. So I would definitely recommend getting some time with one of us, anybody on our team that knows Waves plugins. I know I've used a lot of them, but a lot of it comes down to what you're hearing. And I think you asked the one most important question: how does one decide if it's actually necessary? You have to know what you sound like with confidence.
You got to ask us.
Yeah, you really have to know how you should sound in comparison to others in context. You need to know that, and that's very hard to know on your own unless you've been doing this for a really long time. So, so I hope that helps, but don't always go immediately to the fanciest plugin you can find.
Right. If it doesn't sound sibilant on your end, chances are it's not. And there's people listening on laptop speakers and stuff. Any speaker that can't get the entire frequency of the human voice, it's going to overmodulate the high end sometimes, and it's going to sound sibilant. But it's not going to sound sibilant wherever it is that you're sending it to. And if it is, generally an engineer will probably clean it up anyway. So, I mean, and I've never heard a lot of people being really sibilant on auditions, so I don't worry about that one. Right. Okay, question from Mike Durner. Your turn.
For P2P auditions, pay to play. Yeah. How much compression and EQ should we be using? There's two questions. Okay, so that's question one. You want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure. How much should you use? If you record it right up front, not a whole lot. You got to remember that most processing is for minor corrections, perhaps in your room. You might have a node somewhere or something that you just needs a tiny little bit of adjustment. Some people use these plugins and all these processes and compression and EQ. The only time I would ever use EQ is probably to set it as a high-pass filter to get rid of low-end rumbles and stuff like that. Perhaps if somebody is not recording it right and there's too much high-end, yeah, you can back that off a little bit.
Maybe if you're on a Rode NT1A, that's notoriously a bit bright.
Right, exactly.
Too much high end, you might calm it down a little bit.
Right. If you don't know how to use it, don't. And let somebody who knows how to do it set it up for you, if indeed it actually needs to be done. As we said in the last question, it might be how you're listening to playback. And when you send a file out, it's going to sound different to the person you send it to than what you are actually listening on. So everybody talks about it, but you've got to understand what it does, how it does it, and when you're supposed to use it. Some people say, oh, you got to put compression on your auditions because you got to be louder than everybody else. Well, not if you're doing a very intimate, quiet commercial. So,
yeah, if it's like a soft read,
yeah,
but it's at this volume and it's like extremely, it's like whoa, it has to fit. It has to be appropriate.
Exactly.
So, EQ and compression, it's just like seasoning in a food. You just need to know how much you need.
Just a pinch.
And it's usually less than you think.
Right.
And I look at old EQ settings I've done for people in past doing, someone's like, I've been using the same stack that you made for me 8 years ago. Should I get a new one?
I get that one a lot.
Probably. Let me take a look. And sometimes I look at the EQ curve I set up for them 8 years ago, and it's got like 8 dB of boost at 16K. And then it's got all these, I'm like, yeah, let's refresh that because A, I'm better than I was 8 years ago. B, trends have changed. C, you're probably in a different room or space than you were 8 years ago. So, yeah, there's just a lot of reasons to revisit it. The other one was about Zoom, and I'm going to tell you right now, if Zoom's working for you in the version you're running, just keep it there. If you're on 5.13.11, you're good to go. Don't worry about it, unless we hear of some kind of exploit that will hack your computer through Zoom. Probably no reason to update Zoom unless there's a mandatory update because of some feature that you're being told to use. So, I was on 5.13. Blah, 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 whatever it was until today. And I decided to finally update it to try this new feature that didn't exist. So,
okay.
You saw my video. That was my experience.
Good to know. All right. Jeff Holman, since he happens to be here, he can actually ask his own question.
Nice. Fire away.
Well, you got to unmute your mic first, though. Oh, maybe I can unmute his mic. Nope.
You can try.
All right. Come on now. Unmute mic. Mute mic. There you go.
Hey there.
Talk. Holy crap. All right.
You're there.
Oh, my gosh. So I'm getting my cotton batting from ATS tomorrow, George. And I'm guessing that I can just nail it to the wall, or is there maybe a better way to put it up?
I don't. You probably could nail it to the wall with just a couple of nails. It'll just sort of hang there, but it might kind of droop a little bit. So you might want to put it on a backer of some kind, and that could be that could literally be cardboard, or it could be some foam board, or it could be some kind of cheap, veneer, plywood, or material you find at Home Depot. And then I would just use spray adhesive. So like 3M Super 77 is a popular spray adhesive. And that way you're basically making acoustical panels that can be taken down or moved, versus attaching them directly to the wall. But however you do it, the last thing I would definitely not use spray adhesive and spray it right to the wall, because if you have to take it down later, you're gonna hate that. So,
Never.
Yeah,
stick it
I
to
would
the
attach
wall.
it to something first, so it has something rigid. I would attach it to something that's rigid. I think that would be the easiest way to handle it. And then you can just, let's say they're like 2x4 pieces of cardboard. I don't know. Then all you need to hang that is like a picture hanging nail. So, that's what I would do.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, have fun with the new setup. You're giving us a play-by-play over time as to how it's evolving. So show us and share us next time when you have it all done.
All righty.
Cool.
All right. That's Jeff Holman, who monitors our chat room. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Paul Mella asks, I'm a bit overwhelmed by the poor reviews on Apple's M2 slowing things down. Some saying worse than the M1. Is this true? Are we better getting a 3-year-old chip instead of the M2? Looking to upgrade to a non-laptop and disappointed by June's WWDC release.
I want to see facts.
Yeah.
Don't
listen to what everybody says.
Well, I haven't seen I have not. I mean, I'm a tech nerd, and I watch a tremendous amount of tech reviews of new gear and everything, and that's not something that's been on my radar. So either I just missed that one story, or that one story is the anomaly. So just like somebody saying you're sibilant, if the other 90 people said you're not, throw out the one strange one. So I don't know how many reviews there are saying the similar thing, but I'm not aware of it. I actually have. Actually, you just reminded me of a story I didn't say. I didn't do at the top of the show. This is a perfect opportunity. So I have a MacBook Air M1, the original when it came right when it came out, and I've been using it for 2.5 years, and it's been overwhelmingly great. So, and I've been keeping it on Monterey. So I did not upgrade to Ventura because you guys know, if anybody watches this regularly, I don't like anyway, having to worry about updates rolling out over time when I have a system that's already running. I don't want to get the new version of Ventura tomorrow and find out something new is wrong. So that's why I don't run the newest version. But okay, long story short, because this could get really out of hand quickly, I was using the MacBook on my lap. It's how I always use it. I never use it plugged into anything. Only thing I plug it into on a regular basis is a headset plugged into the headphone jack. That's about it, right? And I'm just working away, and it just black screen, dead, off. I'm like, holy crap.
Yikes.
I have not seen this happen on this brand new Mac before. Okay. And, normally I'm pretty zen about tech. Like, things reboot, things crash, whatever, right? I'm like, I don't know. So I start Googling around a little bit about spontaneous crashes. It gave me a one-line crash log when it restarted. Your computer restarts and says, you want to send a crash report to Apple? Usually you should do that anyway. I clicked on it, and it shows the crash report, and it's a single line of information saying, basically saying, your computer just crashed for some reason. It's kind of like what it said. And I was like, this is not good. This is not helpful, and it's not good. And I did a little more research and found out there's a little bit of users out there on the M1 MacBook Air who have had some spontaneous reboots that don't have a solution from Apple per se. AKA, they don't have like a thing saying, here's how to remedy this problem, kind of thing. So I did what I thought was the sane thing to do, and I bought another one. But I didn't buy another M1. I bought an M2. So I have a MacBook Air, not the 15-inch, the big one, the new flashy one, the 13-inch MacBook Air M2 coming. It's supposed to be here at the end of next week, I think. And I'm going to retire my M1 MacBook Air. So I have no idea what to say other than that. Just your story reminded me of my story. And the point is like sometimes the troubleshooting process is so laborious that you cut bait and you just move on to a different piece of gear, which sounds crazy. But with tech like this, computers that are so new, it's such a new architecture, and you can't swap out componentry. It's all in there. You can't do anything. Sometimes you might find that the journey of troubleshooting, the install this, upgrade that, and all the residual things that happen as a result takes so much more time. And just starting from a clean slate with a new machine can make sense. Anyway, I'm hoping that's my experience, and this one doesn't have the same problem. Apparently the issues were M1 specific. Nobody with M2s seemed to be reporting the same problem. Knock on wood. Hopefully the new M2 is trouble free. I don't know if anybody else has had that happen to them, but
what was supposed to be the improvement with the M2? I mean, I like my M1. It does some weird stuff every now and again. I've had programs that just suddenly go, wait, where'd it go? Not often, but what was the M2 chip brought along?
Well, yeah, it's certainly not a performance. I mean, there's a performance improvement. That's the whole point of releasing a new chip is usually performance related. There's an architecture in the M2 chip that has a few, maybe one feature that's around machine learning that's kind of, I think, unique from the M1 maybe. But generally, your day-to-day, the things that you do with your computer, for the most part, you will not probably notice any difference. If you went from an Intel to an M2, it would be a ginormous improvement. If you went from an M1 to an M2, it would be a minute, very small improvement in performance. So, yeah, I don't think you're going to notice anything big at all. So, yeah, nothing to be really concerned about. The stuff that was released in June was overwhelmingly targeted to pros. And when I mean pros, I don't mean pro voiceover actors. I mean pros that do heavy graphics.
Or video.
Yeah, heavy duty, multiple channels or tracks of 8K video footage and photogrammetry, which is, look it up, photogrammetry. It's very, very computer intensive stuff. It's not what we do. It's not what we do at all. So honestly, if you have any reticence to buy a new machine, just go to Apple, scroll to the bottom, go to the clearance section, and buy a refurb MacBook Air M1, or go to macsales.com. That's Otherworld Computing. You know, they sell like hubs and memory upgrades, but they also have a really good inventory of refurbished used Macs. So you can save a couple $100 there. You're not going to save a ton of money on an M1 because they're still so new.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, try it out. I have not heard that exact thing yet at Pamela. So if you have a link to put in the comments, that's the reference to what you're describing, I would love to look at it. Please put it in there.
Somebody asked me this week, because they're talking about getting a new microphone or a new computer.
New computer, yeah.
I'm getting old. My brain is just not focusing in on what I'm talking about.
Computer.
Excuse me. And they're like, I want to get a Mac Studio. And I'm like, why? Well, because, I want to have enough power to do voiceover. And it's like, that's not what you get a Mac Studio for. Mac Studio, it's a $3,000 computer. And it's Mac operating system. It has a lot of power. It can take a large thing, but it's got nothing to do with voiceover.
Guys, keep in mind the branding of the Pro, Studio. These are just names. It doesn't mean anything. Just because you're a pro at voiceover doesn't mean you need a brand, something that literally says the word pro in it, and vice versa, so.
Right. And with a Mac, if you've got a 2011, yeah, maybe it's time to move up because, when you can't upgrade it anymore, then it's time to move on. But that takes a while.
10 years, when you hit 10 years, you're going to get into frustration where your browser can't be upgraded.
Right.
And when your browser can't be upgraded, your day-to-day life on the internet becomes more irritating.
Right.
So,
yeah. But if you have a computer that lasts for 10 years, how many PCs would you have bought over that period of time?
So, my dad who's watching this show will be like, I've had the same Windows PC for 13 years and it's still great. So, speaking for you, Dad.
Okay.
But in general, for sure, Windows, I think Mac users tend to use their computers longer. Unless you have a really custom-built high-end PC that was purpose-built, then maybe that might run as long or longer, right? So if the better you spec the computer to begin with, the higher the spec, the more memory, the more storage, generally the longer that thing's going to stay relevant into the future. So if you're going to decide, let's say, between a Mac Mini, but with upgraded memory and storage versus a very base model upper level computer, I would get the upgraded cheaper computer if all things are equal. But I think even the cheapest Studio has more memory than the highest grade Mac Mini, if memory serves. Because I think the Studio comes with 32 gigs of memory or something like that. I don't know.
That's a lot, yeah.
It's still stupendously overkill. I produce tons of content every day with my M1 Mac Mini, and it's absolutely great. Like, extremely reliable. So Mike Dorner says he has a 2010 Windows 7 PC, and it still does run. And a good computer with good parts will run for very, very many years, long past the software compatibility with modern web and security standards. End of rant. End of subject.
All right. And pretty much the end of the show. If you've got a question for us, you can write to us at the guys at vobs.tv. And, sometimes, yeah, we'll answer your questions as long as it's not, too detailed. We can always help you professionally. If it's something, something terribly wrong, you can contact us to fix that or, troubleshoot the issue.
We actually have a service on George the Tech called Answers. So if you really are like, I have this question and I really want to get a good answer, there's a service for that. We charge $50 for that, and you can choose who you want to get your answer from, and you can answer your questions, ask your questions there, and because getting the right information is very, very efficient.
Yep,
it's worth $50.
Well, thank you for all your questions and for tuning in tonight. You've, as I used to say on Card Talk, you've wasted another perfectly good hour.
Yes.
Listening to us ramble on about home voiceover studio tech. And, but the fact of the matter, we've been doing this for 12 years, so clearly we must be saying something right. Anyway, we'll be right back to wrap things up and tell you what's coming up right after these messages.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on The VoiceOver Body Shop.
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
All right. Maybe some of you know my son is an animator. He's trying to get a job in Hollywood, but he produces his own stuff. And he does his own character voices, and he's done dubbing and a lot of other stuff. He's starting out in his voiceover career. He needed a website. So what did we do? We went over to a great site to get a website. It's called voiceactor.com. Voiceactor.com. What can you do there? They have templated websites specifically for voiceover. You can change the background, you can add pictures, your demos, your name, your contact information. It's all there, and you can do it in less than half an hour. George and I have proved it because we did it for both our kids, and they're up and their sites are up and running. So go over to voiceactor.com and get your voiceover studio and voiceover head website done now.
We are the World Voices Organization,
also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. Voiceover is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
and to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
a supportive and creative community,
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
our exclusive demo player for your personal website,
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library,
our annual WovoCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network,
webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
We speak for those who speak for a living.
Yeah, hi, this is Carlos Alazraki, the voice of Rocco, and you're watching VoiceOver Body Shop.
All righty. Thanks for tuning in tonight and submitting your questions and listening in and getting the information that you can't get anywhere else. Next week on this very show, we won't be here. I have to go to Buffalo for a wedding. I'm not excited about going back to Buffalo, but I gotta go.
Well,
because
the weather's going to be nice.
It is the best time of year to go back to Buffalo, and so I have cousins. I want to see some friends, but I will not be back. So it's the week of the 4th of July. You guys aren't going to be watching anyway, but. Guess what? There are so many more VoiceOver Body Shop episodes out there that perhaps you've missed somewhere along the line. You can watch them anytime you want. So why don't we do that? But we'll return on July 10th with another great guest. A number of people have talked to me, and we're going to set it up, and you're going to have another great guest. Like we had Hugh Klitzke last week and Deb Irwin the week before that, and all of the great people who are in the voiceover business who impart their expertise to you. Anyway, we have donors, people who have donated some significant cash to make sure that we can run this show technically perfectly. And those people would be Grace Newton.
Oh, Grace. We love hearing that name all the time. Christopher Epperson.
Robert Leadham.
Stephen Chandler.
Casey Clack.
Jonathan Grant.
Tom Pinto.
Greg Thomas.
A Doctor Voice.
Antland Productions.
Martha Kahn.
949 Designs.
Sarah Borges.
Philip Sapir.
And Brian Page, along with
Patty Gibbons.
Rob Ryder.
Shauna Pennington Baird.
Don Griffith.
Trey Mosley.
Diana Birdsall.
Maria Mackus.
And Sandra Manwiller. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. If you want to donate to the show, because we're giving you what you need, there's a donate now button on our website, vobs.tv, if you're watching there right now. If you're on Facebook, go over there now and press it anyway. Let's see. homevoiceoverstudio.com. You need help with your home voiceover studio. That's where you'll find me most of the time. It seems like I never leave my studio, and I'm answering a lot of questions. Go over to homevoiceoverstudio.com and submit a demo of your audio in my specimen collection cup. George, you're over at georgethe.tech, and you got a discount?
Still got the VOBS Fan 10 coupon code. Just use that on anything you book or purchase, services, webinars, everything at georgethe.tech, which is the home for performer-friendly techs.
All right. We need to thank our amazing sponsors, too, like Harlan Hogan's VoiceOver Essentials,
VoiceOver Extra,
Source Elements,
VOHeroes.com,
VoiceActor.com,
and
World-Voices.org, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. Join today. We got lots of great stuff going on. Thanks to Jeff Holman for yeoman work in the chat room, and Sue Merlino for getting it done. Stop that. For getting it done, technically making sure that the right pictures are on at the right time, and that's really important. So anyway, we're here to help you with your home voiceover studio and your home voiceover career. It's not an easy business. It's so hard to get everything right. It takes time and patience and training and getting the right information from the right people, which would be Mr. Whittam and myself. So anyway, we've just discovered when it comes to your audio, if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop,
or VOBS.
BS.
Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Anyway, we'll see you next week, guys, or in 2 weeks.
Bye.